Good morning and welcome to Fire in the Belly. This morning we have Gavan Wall here with us from, Speed Mentor.
From Belfast, Speed Mentor from Belfast, Northern Ireland.
So, do you want to introduce yourself, Gavan?
Yeah, my name's Gavan Wall. I'm well known in these parts. Maybe not. Hopefully, your broadcast will go worldwide, and I won't have a clue about Northern Ireland or Belfast. But certainly in these parts, I'm reasonably well known. My background's in law. I then went into business about 12 years ago, and ever since then, I have been working at trading businesses, then mentoring hundreds of other business people across Northern Ireland, trying to bring my shizzle, my blend of high energy, goal getting, trying to chase down what I would call guerrilla goals.
Yep.
And a number of businesses throughout Belfast employ across them probably over 130 people.
Wow.
And the latest project is in venture capital. So I'm raising a £10 million fund at the minute. As you do. We're looking to turn that 10 million to 10 billion in value. That's 10 billion in value over 10 years. So massive ambition. So you've actually joined me at a really good time.
Excellent. 10 million to 10 billion.
10 billion to 10 billion.
And
all the tens. It's all the tens. I'll be 60 when I do it. In that 10-year stretch. So
excellent.
Yeah.
So Fire in the Belly. Have you heard of it? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, well, certainly Fire in the Belly generally, I know what it means.
Sure.
I certainly have seen some of your content across social media, particularly on Facebook, where you seem to be getting busy at the minute. For me, there's just a relentless drive just to get better every single day.
Sure.
I've had that since I was 27 years of age. I was a total bum up until 27. Now, I managed to get a law degree and stuff like that, but if I'm honest, it didn't take me that much effort, in fact no effort whatsoever. I don't mean that in an arrogant form, just I was good at just scraping through exams and things like that. So but from 27 I had fairly life-changing, not life-changing, but I changed my life around.
Yeah. And
I determined to get better at everything I did from that point forward for the rest of my life, and not to waste my life, and achieve as much as I possibly could. And I've lived that literally every single day for 22 years.
Well, so Belfast born and bred?
Yes, where we are. I grew up, if you look out my front window, you can see the house I grew up in.
Oh, wow, okay.
I grew up in this street.
Wow.
So I am really passionate. I did want to come back to this street. I was very fortunate. I had a great upbringing. I love Belfast. I love trying to make a difference to Northern Ireland. And I love this wee patch. Now I have lived in Wales and London and different places, but I was always coming back to here. My kids go to the same school I went to currently. So Belfast born and bred. I'm really passionate about trying to make a difference.
Okay. And how was upbringing? I mean, kids and school and...
Yeah, it was good. We were spoilt rotten as children in our house. Really spoilt. Too much.
Okay.
That has informed my way of parenting. You can give too much to children.
Okay.
And I felt we had too much. Now it's just our parents trying to show love.
Sure.
In a way, it'd be better if they maybe just showed more paternal and maternal love.
Okay.
I'm not looking to have a go at them, but rather than gifting all the time, there you go, take that. At Christmas, I used to have to pretend I got less than I actually got.
Wow, okay.
That's how much we were getting, how generous our parents were to us as children. We were absolutely lavished. Two of them, they both came from the Falls Road. They probably didn't have that much when they were growing up. Sometimes you do the exact opposite to what you had. That's no...
Your values and your values?
Yeah. So, and perhaps I've taken a more balanced view. I sort of hope I have. So, but it was great, and went to school here. Then went to school in North. I lived in South Belfast. Went to school in North Belfast. Then went to university, did law, all the rest of it. But it was good. I enjoyed.
So your parents are originally from the Falls?
Yes.
But you were up here by the time you were born, were you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had just. My dad was a solicitor, and his practice was going well, and he came to South Belfast.
Brilliant.
In the late 60s.
Interesting times.
Yeah.
What about your mother?
So she was, this show, I don't know if a lot of people will remember this type of thing, but my mother, funny, she was in the civil service. Okay. And I'm probably a bit more like my mum than my dad. People think my dad had some good success. People think, oh, he was maybe like his dad in a way, but actually I'm far more like my mum. She's far more gregarious, and even. But what happened to her, and this will be interesting for folks at home because they won't remember this, is that she was in the civil service. She was doing really, really well.
Okay.
I actually feel she has an unrequited sense of success in her life. She gave so much to us, and she didn't have a career. But whenever she married and I was born, I was a honeymoon baby. Sorry, I'm hitting that table. I know that's really bad for camera. I always do that. Sorry, folks.
Rubber gloves.
Yeah. So she, I was a honeymoon baby, and I was born 9 months after they got married. They eloped to get married, actually.
Okay.
The parents didn't see eye to eye.
Okay.
And they eloped. And
from the falls or from?
Yeah, they literally lived 100 yards away. I think one thought the other one was a wee bit snobbier than the other, and within there's levels within levels, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And but when she had a baby in the civil service, you had to give up your job.
Oh wow, okay.
So back in 1970, when I was born, if you were female, married, had a child, that was the end of your career as in the civil service.
Wow.
Like that. Pretty mind-blowing stuff. That's only I'm 49 now, I'd be 50 this year.
Yeah.
But that was the lot of women back in those days. Now some might say we haven't completed that journey, but I can definitely feel my mum, who I think would have been, she would probably be up at Stormont, but she would have been showing those politicians how to do it. Now she'd have whipped them into shape a lot quicker. But it shows that there's probably a lot of women of that age maybe who had to just, I'm not saying that there's anything against being a homemaker, but maybe didn't get the careers that they could have had.
Sure.
I think my mum a wee bit is in that.
What was her specialty, or what was her?
I think she was working for the it was called the Potato Marketing Board or something like that. She wasn't a professional in terms of didn't have a degree or anything like that, but she'd have been, well, I know because I haven't heard a lot from her, a real go-getter.
Right. And
she said to me, like, she was getting really strong promotions and she was getting promoted ahead of everybody else in there, and she would have a very good way with her in relation to people and things like that. And then that was the end of the career.
Wow, okay. So
you think you're getting it tough today?
Listen, you never know. And you look back with rose-tinted glasses and you don't realise. Yeah. Brothers and sisters then?
I have one brother who's a year and 3 months. What I'm talking about? One brother very close to me. He's a year and 3 months younger. I have a sister who's 4 years younger than me. She lives in London, Muswell Hill. And then I have a brother who's 16 years younger than me. Okay. Same mum and dad. He was a wee afterthought. Came along. He was more like a son to me, if you know what I mean.
He was the perfect one.
Yeah. He's a blue-eyed boy. We're the monsters, and he's the wee one.
Oh, fair play. So, to take us through then, so through school, how was school for you?
Funny, I was having a conversation with somebody recently about a wee bit of ADHD and stuff like that. I look back on my school and primary school, there's absolutely no doubt. Okay. They ended up, even though I was one of the brightest in the class, ended up putting me in the remedial class to control my behaviour. It's just funny when people talk about these. It's amazing how many people actually become entrepreneurs and have that sort of different life after they have had stuff that really they didn't know what was going on. But I was bright, but there were a lot of control issues or lack of control on my part. And even in primary school, I was quite difficult for teachers. We still laugh about it today. Put me in remedial class not because of my intelligence. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with anybody, but just to try and get me away from the group sometimes. I look back on that now and I think it was probably undiagnosed ADHD. That's the first time I've ever said that out loud, but I just hear other people talking about this stuff and then I look back and I go, I've never told this story outside. It was a guy, Johnny McCullough, who I went to school with, reminded me the other day. We had a teacher for recorder, so she used to come in to teach us the recorder. For some reason, this is when I was 8 years of age. For some reason, I took it that I didn't want to learn a recorder, and there was no way I was learning a recorder.
You didn't see a future in it.
Didn't see a future even in those days. And I was probably right. If you've ever heard my singing on my own podcast, you'll know I don't have a musical bone in my body. Yeah. But that recorder, I refused to bring it in the first class. Right? She gave me 50 lines. I must not forget to bring my recorder with me to school.
That's a long line.
That's a long line. 50 of those. The next week, I refused to bring it again. She gave me 100. Right? By the end of the year, we were up to tens of thousands. I had the entire class. We were using the wee carbon paper.
Yeah.
And we made these devices so you had like about 6 pens in a row. Right? I had the whole class. I refused for the entire year, right, to bring a recorder at the age of 8. My whole class doing these. I was paying them to write lines. And I reduced the lines from I must not forget to bring my recorder to bring toot toot. That's what, like, I had the whole class. It was Johnny McCullough who was in my class reminding me about this the other day. I told it in front of my kids and my wife, and I'm just going, oh, how am I going to keep them any discipline? This is impossible. But so at the age of 8, I was already at that sort of thing. But I was bright enough, so I was able to get through exams. And there was.
What do you think that was, though? Do you know?
I do actually think there was an issue. It might have been ADHD or some other variant or something like that.
Was it a call for help, or did you just think it was
do you know what? I found I was really good at maths, and I found those things easy. But then once I felt I had mastered something, and you know what? If you look at my career, there's plenty of signs of this in it. And maybe talk about that later on. Once I've sort of mastered it, I'm bored.
Right.
What's next? And I think that in primary school. Spelling and arithmetic were the two main things that I read.
Okay.
I'd mastered that fairly quickly, and I was just bored. I was just going to cause hassle or havoc, mixture of that and ADHD.
You said you were happy at that age.
I was loving it. You can enjoy winding teachers up, and I really took that into my secondary school. There was lots more of that in my secondary school. So I was happy. That mischievousness helped me create followers.
Sure.
I've sort of probably used that a wee bit in the rest of my life. So, but it was more destructive in those days. I think it was if there was a bit of authority, it would never been against another people or anything like that. It was always against a bit of an authority figure.
Something you didn't agree with.
Yeah, but that particular one, it was just stupid.
Yeah.
I can't even understand why I didn't just bring my recorder. Just. I mean, the stuff we went to for me not to bring it, but the whole class was in then writing lines, carbon paper, pens with elastic bands, doing this, bring toot toot. Like, it was so much more difficult than just doing a recorder. That went on for an entire year, and then I regret because that teacher wasn't able to control me. And I look back on that now and I think, yikes.
How would you have controlled you? I usually come back to this later, but I mean, almost advice to younger self. I mean,
I don't know. It depends. It's hard to say these days. So you have classroom assistants, so you don't have as often a teacher just isolated on their own. If you have 30 pupils and different ones are at different stages of learning, and maybe I wasn't half as smart as I thought I was, but I thought I was. So I thought, you know what, I know this already. I'm going to mess about. I don't think. Certainly in the teaching that I've seen in the same school actually, seems to be a very high standard. They're taught better to deal with that type of thing.
Okay.
Maybe if there's an issue, it gets diagnosed or looked at earlier. I can't believe I'm sharing. I've shared a lot of things, as you know, on my social, but I've never shared any of this really actually. So I think it would get looked at quicker. These days.
No, and I get that, like I say, from myself, and I'm sort of openly dyslexic and ADHD and all that, and it is that.
Well, I didn't know you were. It was you I was talking to earlier. I didn't want to, just in case.
Didn't want to out me.
I didn't want to out, just in case it wasn't.
And I'm curious even from from schools nowadays. It's because people say, "Oh, the system's broke," and it doesn't serve the kids, and it's like, well, almost every child needs a kind of a bespoke service, almost,
Yeah, and look, there's a lot of pressures in the home and all stuff like that. I think it's like it wasn't my mum and dad's conduct created that, whatever it was. Maybe it was their genes that created that. Maybe it was my mum's sense. Maybe I picked my mum's sense of unfulfillment. I don't know if she feels this way. I've never actually talked to her about it, but unfulfillment, their own. I took it out in the world. I don't know.
So, homework, was it something you were pushed
Never
to?
Did homework.
Never did
homework. Never ever did homework. Never.
Oh, is the wee fighting gene reared up there for a second?
Look, I regret it now, and I instill it. Like, if my kids ever see any of my social stuff, I'll be embarrassed. But because we are fairly tight around homework, and I love to drive my children on. My eldest is a mini me of me, but it's a really weird one. She's absolute mini me of me. But I knew that by the age of 8, she could be off the rails.
Right.
So with that knowledge in my mind, like, she's into everything. It's like she just does not stop from the minute she gets up. It's unbelievable. But I parented her in a certain way, knowing what I had been like.
Okay.
And kept on trying to just corral her into bettering herself rather than just trying to wreck all around her, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And luckily she's just done the transfer test there and did well and all the rest of it. She's so determined, but we've got it going in the right direction. Never had to ask her to do homework. She goes in there, does it herself, does all her practice papers, all of that, without any guidance whatsoever. The other two might be a wee bit more difficult, but
they're all different fish.
They're all different.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time thinking about the parenting side of things.
Okay. So through primary school, then secondary school. What were your specialties there? And then
Messing about.
Chief Messer.
Brutal. we used to keep like top of the pops. Top of the pops. Now there were guys. So I was going to school in North Belfast. We were South Belfast softies. Day one we arrived up. I don't think I've ever talked about this before either. Day one we arrived up. My mum made sure we had our blazers from the best, from Warnock's, on Lisburn Road. Full woolen blazers. Flares. They weren't even flares. Flares, you could almost have said flares were trendy, but they were this the whole way up. Right. They were that wide the whole way up. So they weren't even flares. It could have been the 70s trendy. So we arrived in 1981, or I arrived in 1981. Full woolen blazer. Everybody else in school had drain pipes and Dr. Martens. We had Clark's shoes, and they had nylons, etc. And we stood out, or I stood out. A couple of the ones that came from South Belfast stood out like a sore thumb. And you either had to step up, because you had to show your mettle, or you get steamrollered. And I had enough of the about me, and more than they did. I wasn't as hard as I was a softie in terms of I was no fighter, and there would have been a fair bit of that at the school. And but I certainly stepped up, and then I was like, we did top of the pops, who was the number one messer in the school that week, and we used to keep the charts and all of that. And see, if I wasn't at the top of that chart week in, week out, I was devastated. So I don't even know why that was important to me. Like, I look back on it now and I cringe, but that's just good. The way it was. But
that's good for you.
Yeah,
that's fun.
I don't know why I was like that, but
so up to GCSEs or O levels?
O levels in my day, O levels, A levels, and then on to do a degree in law.
What was your specialties, or what subjects?
This is going to sound really, really weird. I was really good at getting what I needed to get.
Okay.
Right, so there were other students who were getting higher grades than me. My dad was in law, so it was always thought that I would go into my dad's legal practice, so I sort of always knew what I needed to get, and you weren't going to get an ounce more. And so did my O levels, did reasonably well without doing any homeworks, but it was getting progressively tougher, so the A levels were tougher again. And 2 of my 3 A levels I didn't even do for O level. I picked them out of a hat.
Okay.
It sounds crazy. And I got plenty of A's at O levels, and I still picked out of a hat and picked 2 subjects, 2 out of 3 that I'd never even done before. One of which it turned out I really enjoyed was economics, just by chance. I hadn't done that, and I hadn't done the ancient history, and that came out, and I didn't even like history in terms of the schooling bit of it.
Sure.
I ended up picked out ancient history as well, and that was a struggle for me. So it didn't have anything. The only thing I really liked actually was economics. At 16, I asked my parents to leave school because I felt that my A levels were not going to go as well as they might have done, because I was not interested. I wanted to go down to College of Biz, as it was called then, in Brunswick Street, College of Business and Technology. That's where I really wanted to get out and actually start to learn stuff that would have been an interest to me. The bit that actually we didn't talk about there was I was running lots of little businesses on the outside of school.
Okay.
So when I think it was about 13, I got a sewing machine for Christmas. And I started a wee business of taking people's trousers in, and we all had drain pipes for all mods in those days.
Just to forgive your mother's sin of
Yeah.
putting you in the big trousers.
Yeah, put me in the big trousers. So I started taking in, this was school trousers, everything we're all taking in, and I did that. And then the following year I got hair clippers, so I used to cut people's hair and have a wee turn at that. So I was doing at this state from about age of 11 or 12, I was also asking for shares in the stock market for Christmas as well. I was really into anything entrepreneurial on the side, no interest really in the school stuff, and sorry, noise outside. But yes, so I wanted to leave school at 16 to go to the College of Biz. My parents said no, and I went to do A levels.
Okay.
And they weren't great.
You just want to take it back a wee bit there. You used a very interesting expression saying it was thought you would join your dad's solicitor's practice.
Yeah.
It's very non-personalised language and just very...
I know, do you know why it is? Because I've processed a lot of pain around this. We may talk about it. I have processed a lot of pain. It's actually that whole thing about I said from the age of 27. So it felt like my life started at 27. So my dad is old school, real old school. You don't hear much out of him. He's not the modern day dad, if you know what I mean.
Sure.
He's just old school, he keeps himself to himself. So when I say that, he didn't force me to do law, but it felt like that's what was expected. I really wanted to do business. And the reason I partly use that language, so I did 5 years at law and it wasn't really my thing. Anybody who knows me will say it wouldn't have put you down as a solicitor or a barrister, Gavin. Sure. Maybe a barrister, but definitely not a solicitor. So I did 5 years of that. 2 weeks before I qualified as a solicitor, my dad came home with a few beers on board from the Arts Club in Elmwood Avenue on a Friday night, and he said to me, "Son, you'll be paddling your own canoe. I'm taking early retirement." So 2 weeks before I qualified as a solicitor, I discovered that I wasn't going into my dad's successful solicitor's practice. And 2 weeks later, I was probably the first and only ever unemployed solicitor in Northern Ireland. So totally out of a job. 2 weeks later, and could not get a job anywhere else because all the other jobs I went for interview for, my dad hadn't announced he was going to retire. He was quite high profile solicitor in the town. They were saying, "Well, Gavin, why would we bring you in and train you and do all this? You're just going to go to Gavan Wall." And I didn't want to break his confidence.
Sure.
So the whole thing about me using that sort of language, impersonal language, and not, it's because I've sort of boxed it. It took me a long time to get over that.
Sure.
That particular time was 3 to 4 years of just utter mayhem in my life, partying, crazy stuff, until I got to 27.
I think that obviously was completely unexpected.
Totally unexpected. So it took me 6 months to get a job, and the job that I got was actually selling car insurance. So I was qualified solicitor, couldn't get a job in law for 6 months, and I ended up selling car insurance.
Okay.
And then bizarrely in the car insurance, this is a real thing the more I think about it now, really difficult relationship with my manager at that time, like really, really difficult. I had probably a lot of pent up frustration at that stage.
Sure.
And
what was that frustration? No.
I don't know. Oh, well, I do know at that stage, yeah, I felt that I could have been off doing business. I did 5 years in law, and then became unemployed, and then it started to dawn on me, do you know what? Because I really wanted to come back to this street. It started to dawn on me. This is a nice place a nice bit of the town. That I was never going to be able to get back to where I had sort of grown up.
Okay.
I can remember thinking that to get back to there, you're going to have to do really well. And I now think, am I allowed to swear on your podcast?
Sure.
I now think I literally, in terms of careers and stuff, I'm fucked in my 20s.
Okay.
I did law. Don't really want to do it. I've spent a lot of time doing that, and actually, it's not it's not going to do anything for me.
It's very emotive language.
Yeah, that was really tough. I just hid it in drinking, partying for about 3 or 4 years.
What do you know what your dad's thought process
So
was on it?
I've never talked. I don't even know that he knows that he had that conversation with me. It was obviously he knew he had to have it because there's only 2 weeks left. If he'd had it 2 years earlier, I wouldn't have gone to the institute to do my professional qualification. I know your wife's a barrister, and if he'd had it earlier, I could have saved. It was a thing. But my dad is old school, so talking about something emotional. So this is really, it became the driving. You talk about the fire in my belly. Fire in the belly. It became the driving force. So from 27, I've worked it out. I think I worked it out later, but from 27 to 37, that drove me like. It was a negative. You should really never use it. I've reflected on it. You shouldn't use negative emotion for this period of time that I did. But I determined, as well as I was going to get better every day, I started trying to give up drink at 27. It took me 10 years to get off it till 37. But I decided that I was going to be more successful than my dad.
Okay.
Just to say that to him.
Is your dad still around? So,
Yeah. No, I've a great relationship now. It took me a lot of processing.
Sure.
So I said I was going to get be more successful than my dad and do that to him. Now, so at 27, then what happened was I got a job as a solicitor in the civil service. I can imagine me in the civil service. Jesus Christ. That was another place I wrecked. I tell you, flipping ended up suing them and flipping all sorts. Just another place, just my face didn't fit. I kept on getting into places where my face didn't fit. And that's why ultimately I think my face does fit in business, hopefully. But I kept on getting, that was another place, the face didn't fit. But at 27, I was in there, realised, right, I'll give it a shot here. But what started happening at that stage was I had started buying properties on the side. So I got a job looking after the OMA office for the civil service where I was working, and I got myself a £700 police car, ex-police car, for £700. I thundered in, no brakes. I shouldn't even say that. Total wreck. Shouldn't have been driving. I drove to OMA every day in that and back, and I was earning about £70 or £80 per day for that. And I was away for more than 10 hours per day, so I was getting double bubble on my lunch money, and got £9, and I was bringing a packed lunch. So I think 80 odd quid per day, and I started using that money to invest in property. So, and then I also started trading shares. I bought a wee computer, a Jornada, this is back in the 90s, and I was trading shares during my lunch break. And then I also had an international phone card business as well. And I was the most successful franchisee in the whole of the UK.
Wow.
So I was doing that all at the same time, and started making really good money and started investing it into properties.
So hit me on the timeline. So then first property was when?
About 1997.
Okay. So you were 29? No, 20?
27.
27. Oh, okay. And then so shares and all happened at the same time?
Yeah.
So you full-time in civil service?
Yeah.
And
I worked hard. I worked hard down there because they had three. They used to have 3 lawyers down there, and now they only had 1. So there was actually for the last 22 years, I'd worked flat out for 22 years, and that was the civil service wouldn't have been totally flat out, but it's because I was doing the other things as well. So Saturday, Sunday would have been out sourcing, looking for properties and driving around, looking at different areas.
what were you looking for?
I was looking for rental yields. That was really what I was looking at. Anything north of 10% rental yield, which you could get back in those days.
Still can.
You still can. I know you still can. People buy less, but you get 10% rental yields. Getting more than 10%. Sometimes we do a upper. Started then doing them up as well.
You hands on or did you?
Yeah, no hands on. Yeah. I built a kitchen once. I'm a total flipping. I don't even know how I did it. Just down on the Lisburn Road, actually.
What was fueling at you at that time? Do you know?
That was just that was the dad. Get better every day and be more successful than my dad. Just absolutely determined.
So the
So the burning sort of resentment of him was still there at that stage.
Was it resentment, or
I think
how
was.
would you describe it?
I just have to be honest, and I don't feel that it was resentment not to my dad but to what had happened. I felt he'd let me down. I felt he led me down a garden path. When I really look at it, he never specifically said you were entitled to this and that, but it was the best lesson that ever happened to me. It was no one knows you, and I said to people all the time. It was only when I let go of that. That sounds a bit weird to say that your dad doesn't know you anything, but when I was able to say my dad doesn't, then nobody owes me anything. And that has really freed me to become almost total self-determination. Everything I do is down to me. And if somebody doesn't reciprocate something I've done nicely for them, I don't let it worry me. I just move on.
Sure.
And just keep on giving. But yeah.
I'll just pull you back a wee bit into school, and your application of picking a subject out of the hat. Do you know what your thought process or your learning process was? I mean, did you see it as a challenge, or it was just an activity, or and did learning come easy for you, or was it...
I'm probably a quick learner, but I get bored very, very easily.
Okay.
So I can soak up. If I was in one in every 4 or 5 classes,
okay,
I would pick up enough to pass the exam.
Okay.
Sort of thing. But I haven't talked about this before either. I actually, this is a wee weird one for some of the really good students that were at our school, guys like Pete Cusick and Jimmy Nagel and different guys. It's interesting. I look back on it now and I wonder, was I afraid to pit myself against them? Those guys were machines. They were working really hard from day one. Now I can remember on day one we arrived in, everybody had to write an essay. Mine was the best essay in the class about your first experience with the school, and mine got brought to the president of the school. Okay. And that was the high point of my educational career. Right. When they were really impressed, my dad got to find out and everything like that. And that was it. And then it was sort of steadily, because I was doing less and less work than they were doing. I wonder a wee bit, I've thought about this from time to time, think, was I afraid to pit myself?
Afraid of success?
Yeah. No, I didn't know what, it's half, well, you know yourself, the fear of success, fear of failure, they're so interlinked. And whether I thought I couldn't keep up with them, whether I thought maybe they were smarter than me.
Was there a perfectionism type slant on it, do you think? Or?
Yeah, I love to be able to say that I was the best at doing no work but still getting the exams. Okay. I set a new standard, and I genuinely was doing no work. I don't, there'll not be many harder workers than me out there in the workplace. So it hasn't come into my work life. But I set up a new standard. I used to like setting up standards. So the standard was who could do less work but still get the exams. I was definitely the best at that. Whether I could have matched them in the exams, I don't know. I don't know.
I know from NLP techniques, it's almost one of those things where you self-sabotage almost,
100%.
Well, it could have been brilliant if I hadn't have done something to jeopardize yourself. Yeah, and whether it was the fear of success, the fear of failure, I would have had more success. But you know what? The other thing was actually, I didn't like the way it was taught either, so it wasn't interesting me. The only thing I ever did like was economics, and I did well at economics. What was it about economics that
but there was the business side of things. It actually meant things. So remember, I had wee side businesses. The elasticity of supply and demand and things like that. And I was actually analysing that. If you look back, actually something that did interest me at school was the debating society. Okay. So the debating society, before I joined in lower sixth, it was the smallest club at the whole school. Okay. They literally would have had, so it wasn't like subjects didn't interest me apart from economics, but they would have had maybe six or 10 people would have turned up. I joined it and took over it, and it became the biggest club in the entire school. I mean, we had to go. They used to do a wee classroom. We used to have to go and do our debates in the hall because we were absolutely rammed. So I did the marketing, did the posters, chose the debates. There was a Miss Pettigrew who was absolutely brilliant. I was quite in awe of her at the time. She's a lovely woman, and used to help with all of that, and I used to go around and drum up people, debates like we should not tolerate the intolerance, the interesting stuff.
Sure.
And so that really got me excited actually at school, more than the subjects, some of the side projects, and economics.
Wow. First job then?
First job. First proper. What's first job?
Give us both, because there's obviously something going on there.
No, there's a few. I remember actually in the street at 16. I got bad back to this day because of it, but I actually built an entire patio.
Not your own, I think.
No, from mum and dad's.
Okay.
Yeah, from mum and dad's.
Cool.
They had a builder who left a lot of rubble actually at the house, and I built the patio, mixed the cement and everything. So this was 16. Mixed the cement. Ordered the flagstones, but lifted the flagstones myself. That's just in my back, and I've still got a problem with it since. And dug a hole, massive hole, filled it with all this rubble. Don't even know if that's legal these days. Even being back then, and built the patio that Mrs. Featherstone across the road then inherited. It's probably rubbish, but probably didn't last too long after we left. We left the next year whenever my younger brother arrived on the scene. So those, I consider those all as little jobs, and I worked in Lavery's Bar. Everybody in Belfast should work in Lavery's Bar. Charlie Lavery, who was the owner at the time, or certainly part owner, he was my dad's best man. I worked there.
Behind the bar? Or?
Behind the bar, yeah.
So how was pulling points for you?
Yeah, look, you know what Lavery's is like, absolutely mental. Like if you want to test yourself under stressful conditions, as a bar person, you didn't get that much training. Bernard Lavery was in, he now runs the place, and he was sort of the manager at the time. Well, he was Charlie's nephew, but great guy. Yeah, probably Lavery's Bar, and then first big one really was Boga McNulty Solicitors, where I was a trainee solicitor in my 20s then, Boga McNulty. I worked in London several summers as a janitor in Arlington House. I was a good wee one actually. I was a janitor, so I had to go and find the dead people in the mornings. So you were a janitor stroke cleaner, and Arlington House was a refuge. It's actually been on TV before. It was a refuge for homeless and stuff like that. Okay. And I really enjoyed it. I built up great relationships and rapport. After 1 week working there, I discovered that the recruitment agency that had placed me there actually was getting more money than I was for the job. And just with my usual wee entrepreneurial stuff, I then approached Arlington House and said, look, you've seen my work, I'm a hard worker. I could do this for you directly. Yeah. And put a wee phone call to say, I'm homesick, I'm way back to Belfast, to the recruitment agency. And then they employed me directly, and I earned really strong money. Then I was getting over £300 a week back in 1987.
What was it about that appealed to you?
And that
particular job?
Just, do you know what? See, when I was getting paid money. Money's less important to me now, actually, but I think it was independence. So my parents spoiled us rotten, right? They spoiled us rotten. You look at all my wee jobs, they spoiled us rotten, but they kept complete control. Okay. So if maybe children sometimes have been given a few pounds, maybe they go on holiday on their own as they hit their 16th, 17th, interrailing or something like that. Sure. In our house, no, you come with us or whatever. So spoiled us rotten, but didn't like us to have much independence. So I always liked making money. Okay. And I became pretty good at that to give me a bit of independence. Sure. So when I was earning that money, I felt good.
But you had a bit of an energy spike there whenever you talked about working with the people and finding the bodies as well.
Yeah, I used to find the bodies, so I used to check all the rooms overnight. People would pass away, maybe an overdose, just an accidental overdose, or just an older person, or cold or anything like that. I've still got some great memories of the relationships.
Was it the connection? Did you enjoy the connection?
Yeah, I enjoy. Your relationship with people can change over time as your skill set improves, etc. Sure. So now, I enjoy trying to inspire people, trying to get people to be better in their lives, trying to lead an example. Then I just enjoyed helping people. Okay. And they used to keep me back afterwards, used to go and play pool and snooker and stuff. with some of the people who were staying at Arlington House, and really enjoyed that, and built strong relationships with them. And Arlington House had seen that from the first week. They didn't just come in and just mark time.
Yeah.
I remember the floors, used to clean them like my life depended on it. Used to, every time you opened the door, when you saw somebody and they were alive, and it sounds, great, and they used to like see me coming. They made a real impact that first week, because I think that would have damaged their relationship potentially with the recruitment agency, which they really needed.
Sure.
So there was a big bit of trust for them to say, Gavin, we'll take you directly. Hope not. Sorry, I wonder who the recruitment agency, I don't know if they still have that relationship, but we basically split the difference of the recruiter. Maybe I did something wrong there, but anyway.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it was win-win. It was the next day for the entire summer.
Wow.
Oh, in fact, only had one day off, actually, that entire summer. That's the story of my life, actually, even though that was before I really turned my life around. I was younger. And we went to Brighton, myself and my friend, my best friend, who became my best man. We actually went to Brighton, but worked every other day.
Wow. So London was a summer expedition for you almost, was it?
Yeah, I went back then the next summer as well. The next summer was actually security guard for Columbia TriStar Pictures, just as the Simpsons was being launched.
Right, okay.
Which was really interesting time, which was back in 80, maybe 88, 89, something like that. So that was, interesting times. London was good, but just hard work.
What dragged you to London? What was the inspiration there?
I don't know, just
took an ocean.
Big city, took an ocean. Just wanted to see what it was like.
What were parents' attitude to this?
Well, at that stage you could do your own thing. I was at university actually that second time. So.
Oh, okay. So university was where?
In Wales.
Okay.
In Pontypridd. It's university. It's called University of Wales. My aunt lives in Wales, and my brother then, he went to university in Cardiff. So we both actually went to Wales.
Okay.
To study.
Just Wales just took your fancy?
Wales just took a fancy. Well, I actually didn't finish the A-levels bit, so I did okay in the A-levels, but not enough to get into Queen's.
Right.
And but I'd hated. I despised the A-levels at that stage.
So you did
no homework, barely. I was bunking off all the time. I see if my kids ever see this. I was on report regularly. I still did okay in the A-levels, but not enough for Queen's.
So what were your subjects?
History, ancient history, and economics.
Okay.
So just nobody does. It's just those subjects are just ludicrous. Like, so what happened was, hated it. Went to repeat.
Okay.
Them, thinking about maybe getting the Queen's. 3 days in, I was already bunking off. And I just said, this is going to be, I'll get even worse this year. I knew it. I'll get worse this year than I did last year. And I've never talked, because I've never actually talked about this before, but so I said, you know what, maybe there's somewhere I could already go and do my law. And I went through clearing, and that's how I got in there with the grades that I had, without repeating. Because if I'd repeated, it would definitely have been worse. Yeah. In fact, I would be surprised if I even turned up for the exams. So I went there.
It's interesting you had a perception of yourself at that point. Because a lot of people don't necessarily.
Is that right?
You don't, I mean, the old sort of eye cannot see itself, but at that stage to know that this was a path that actually you couldn't go down, or...
I'll say, you see, no matter what, I might come out later, I am a survivor. See, whenever I get to somewhere, I can just see it just in time. I mean, that would have been that year would have been just a total waste. Maybe that wouldn't have been a bad thing in one. Maybe I would have gone on and do something else, because I had the grades to get in to do business studies at Georgetown, which is what I actually wanted to do.
Okay.
But my dad had never had. If my dad had the conversation at that stage, I would never have done law. I'd have gone and done, because that was my second choice, was Georgetown. So I had law, Queen's first, Georgetown business studies second.
Right, okay.
I had enough for Georgetown business studies, but I didn't have enough for law at Queen's. If I knew at that stage I wasn't going to Gavan Wall, I'd go straight and do business studies.
Sure.
for 100% certain, but I didn't know that, so I repeated for literally 3 days and said, "This is." I knew how painful it had been the first time round.
Okay. So what I mean, repeating, what did that do for you?
For 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'd already bunked off. I was only 3 days in. I said that I hated these the first time round.
Okay.
This is going to be worse.
Okay.
I just knew it, and I said, you know what? If it's law's the thing to do, I'm going to go into Donnelly Wall. Let's see if somebody else will take me.
Okay.
So I went through clearing, and University of Wales would take me. It's an old polytechnic, as it were.
Sure.
And then off I went.
Do you remember your parents' perception at that time?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't want to put my dad.
If you're not comfortable.
No, look, I've said plenty of stuff in my own podcast, but my mum is my harshest critic. My mum's tough.
Okay.
She's my harshest critic, but only because she cares.
Okay.
So she would be like there's a high bar, you know. And my dad, I can remember whenever I got my results in my A levels. I shouldn't say this. He said, "Your wee brother Ben would have done better," and he was 2. That's tough. That's tough stuff.
Different times.
Yeah, and they were, you know, different times. And he was probably, well, do you know what? They knew what I had put into it. And what I put into it was 0. I did remarkably well, given I had put absolutely 0 into it. And that's why it was a law of diminishing returns. Repeating it, repeating them wasn't going to be a good thing. I would get less than wee brother Ben if I'd repeated them. So off I went to, but you see, if somebody outside the family says something about me, my mum will. You know what I mean? Mum's allowed to chop me off at the knees, but
sure.
It's probably for my own protection sometimes. But nobody else is allowed to. So it's a funny one.
Did any of your brothers and sisters go into law at all, or?
Yeah, so I did law. My brother did law. He's a year younger than me.
Okay.
But he found out before he finished. So he did his degree and then didn't do the professional qualification because he found out about me. He's actually 2 years behind me at school.
Right.
So by the time he knew I wasn't going to Donnelly Wall, he didn't do the professional qualification.
Okay.
So my brother, Mickey Wall, he did law. And my brother, 16 years younger, he did law also.
Okay.
And he was a barrister originally, and that didn't work out for him. And he's now in a really successful. He's a partner. Him and a guy called Neil McGranahan. They have a firm of solicitors they bought it 2 years ago in Newton Ards called Boyd Rice Solicitors, and they're doing really well. They're flat out. They're doing really well. So 3 brothers all did law. None of them ended up in Donnelly Wall. Interestingly, a guy who was in my class at the institute is partner in Donnelly Wall. Okay. So he ended up. This is bizarre. This is how bizarre this was. He was in my class at Queen's at the institute. He ended up in Donnelly Wall, and I was an unemployed solicitor.
Wow.
Now that would pickle your head.
Sure.
So he ended up, and he's a partner in there. And he can't good luck to him. I'm glad. In fact, it was the best thing ever happened to me. I didn't know at the time.
Do you think the writing was on the wall right from that application? You know, sort of law 1, business studies 2.
Yeah. So the heart was I was an entrepreneur inside, and when we go on with the story a bit more, it was always a battle. It was what was expected of me was the law. So if we jump forward, so I'd had this thing after the 3 or 4 years of just blowing my head off at parties. Then I started doing the international phone cards, doing the ban the houses, and then I was in the civil service. I was doing something else, can't even remember now. And ultimately I realised that I was different from the other people in the civil service. We went to a course on change and change management. There was going to be a lot of changes coming up and all I had all day long, I'll tell you the truth, but 20% of the people are really hardworking, and really, really good people. I'm not saying 80% weren't good people, but they just weren't, and 20% carried the 80%. Okay, and the 20%, the more work they did, the more they got, and that's just the way of it. That's what it was like there. So, but everybody complained. Just complaining, hate our jobs, hate our lives, blah, blah, blah. So we went to this change, this thing, the unchange. And I thought, brilliant. Naively, I thought, brilliant, everybody's going to be really happy. There's all this change is coming. They're going to be, because they hate it. All they do is complain. I'm sick of complaining because I was working real. I was going to become more successful than my dad. And and we went to this thing called Change. And I went in, happy face. This could be the making of me, staying here because I've got my side hustles and those are going well for me. And my mum liked me being in the civil service. She was really happy. In fact, she got me the job advert. She gave it to me when I was in the car. She said, "There's a job for you." And I applied and got it. So went to the Change thing. Fuckers. So this is what they're all sitting like this. There's fucking Change. There's no fucking. I says, "Boys, do's moan. What do you mean? This is what you've been waiting for." Oh, fuck, no. I said it could change for the better. Oh, change for the better, my arse. And then that moment, I just went, bang, this isn't for me. Okay. What they're looking to get out of life is totally different to what I'm looking to get out of life. But the weird thing was at that stage, because I had the business stuff going on, the international phone cards business, most successful in the UK. I had the houses, I was up to multiple houses at that stage. I should have gone to business. But the thing about my dad, about being more successful than my dad, I couldn't get that out of my head. I still had this negative feeling to what had happened. And so instead of going to business, I switched to become a barrister. So I sold one of my houses, made 17,000 profit on it. And that gave me enough money to give up the job at the civil service, to go back to Queen's Institute, to swap over to become a barrister.
Wow.
And that's what I did.
Fair play.
That wee change thing, I just said, they're different from me. I'm looking forward to change. I want to keep changing. That stimulates me. They were all moaning. And they'd been moaning before, and I realised then they're going to keep moaning. I need to get myself away from that. So I went back, went to the bar. I swapped over to the bar, sold my first house, made the 17,000 profit, used it, went to the bar, and really enjoyed the bar. I really enjoyed being a barrister. And I had a lot of success as a barrister, like really, really quickly. Because I had more experience, and because I'd experience in law, having been on the solicitor side of it, etc. I went to the bar and picked up work, and I was a bit more mature. I was in my late 20s, 29, 30, something like that. And so I picked up work really, really quickly, and I was earning quite a lot of money very, very quickly. Whereas a lot of barristers will struggle in those first few years. Sure. I actually jumped straight in. Within 18 months I was absolutely flying.
What was your specialty?
Law, or criminal law. So I wanted to do criminal. My dad was a criminal solicitor.
Okay.
So he did all of the troubles. During the troubles he was defending all sorts of heinous crimes. And so I always had an interest on the criminal side of law. So I actually refused to take civil law. Okay. Because I was so focused on what I was doing, and I kept charts like you would do in a business, spreadsheets on my cases, how many solicitors were briefing me, did all of that, how many cases. I used to love coming home to my spreadsheets. Now most barristers wouldn't have, they were maybe going down the pub at the end of the week. I was then going back to my spreadsheets and, right, how many, this new solicitor, that's, it's like a funnel, and keeping all of that. I loved doing my spreadsheets.
So what were you looking for?
I was just looking for continual growth. Okay. Set new targets. What's my target for this year? How many solicitors? How many cases? How much money? How much success? Okay. And I did that, and I just wanted. I can remember at my wedding. This is really weird. At my wedding, so my cousins, who live over in West, and they're good people. I can remember at my wedding. And people going, you're switching to the bar, and we've switched to the bar, and why would you take that risk? And I remember a big table of my cousins, my Auntie Betty and all the rest, all really good people, lovely people. They think my dad, they worship my dad. I'm not saying there's any reason that they're wrong to worship my dad, and I worship my dad now. I've processed all this stuff, but they said, what's this all about? Because I was really driven. I was going to kill dead things. I was so driven. And at my own wedding, they say, why they're asking me these questions? I says, because I'm going to be more successful than my dad. Jesus Christ, the table of my cousins. Talk about pin drop moment. just total silence. But they didn't know what I had been through. They think my dad's perfect. None of us is perfect, and they didn't know what I had been through. And so I did that anyway till I was about 36, 37. And one day, barrister's second best job in the world after entrepreneurship. And one day, I just literally woke up and said, right, I'm now as successful as my dad. And he was really successful. So I was earning hundreds of thousands of pounds a year. I was well respected as a barrister, getting some of the biggest cases. And I woke up and said, right, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. No barrister in Northern Ireland has ever said that. I mean,
sure.
It's nearly impossible to say that, because when you earn that sort of money, a big house in South Belfast at the time, and earn lots of money, you can't walk away from it. It gets you hooked in, and I enjoyed it as well. But actually, that was the end of my bit with my dad. I had done that, I had achieved that, I had driven on it for 10 years, I carried that negative emotion, and I had achieved it. And I woke up, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, because there's no more growth. It's really weird. There was no more growth. And I said to my wife, she's looking at me going, are you mad? I said, I don't think I'm going to do this. I'm going to leave. Even though I enjoyed it. It's bizarre. And
what did you enjoy about it?
I enjoyed having success with it. I did enjoy criminal law as well. See the buzz of winning cases. It's powerful.
Is that what success was for you?
Yeah, see, winning cases, I used to love, and I was winning cases not because I was necessarily the most knowledgeable on the law. I was looking at all of the wee moving parts around. Who was it up against? Who was the judge? What were their pressure points? Who was lazy? Who didn't know their stuff? What angle could have bluffed them? Could have played them in poker, if you know what I mean? Using all of those techniques, and maybe NLP, a whole lot of stuff without me knowing that I used to be really good at doing that sort of stuff to get the results. And when you get results, you get more cases, because solicitors want to use you when they see you winning cases.
Sure.
And I enjoyed that. I was driving a Porsche 911 at the time. I had a big house. You know, what's not to like? I was going to Dubai, go to Cuba, wherever. Look, it was a great life. It was a life that everybody dreams of, surely.
Did you keep on with the side hustles at the same time?
So yeah, so I was up to 50 houses. So I personally owned 50 houses. What happened was, in 2006, so I had gone, maybe you know, Pete, I'd gone from double digit yields to I was getting outbid all the time. People were buying stuff 3-4% yields, and I was going, this just doesn't work. I've been doing this. I'm capital repayment. I'd always been capital repayment for over a decade. Side hustles had gone really well. You know, I was a very wealthy guy, and in 2006 I was getting outbid by, this is no slight on hairdressers, but I'm just using people who'd never been in property. The bank was saying, do you want 100 grand to buy a house?
Self-cert.
Do you know, self-cert, off you go. I was getting outbid. And I literally could not face giving up. That's what's been in there all this time, waiting to get out from that, when I had the opportunity to do law or business studies. I'm not saying you have to do business studies to become an entrepreneur, but the itch was there to find out. I wanted to go to college of biz at 16.
Sure.
So I said, no, I'm in business. That's where I'm meant to be. I feel I've got something to offer.
So why 7 years?
I mapped it out.
Okay.
And I was mapping out to get back to where we sort of were.
What was your reference point though? Did you have one?
Yeah, I did. I wrote it all down. I sent it in an email to a friend. This was before I had social media to keep me accountable. I actually emailed the plan to a friend in Munich, in Germany. Right. So actually the 16-year plan, and the 16-year plan is almost identical to what I mapped out.
Huh.
Yeah, I sent him a 16-year plan, but 7 years of that was total another basically sacrifice. It was 7 years of sacrifice, I call it.
Your 16-year plan's coming up shortly then?
Yeah. So I'm into the stage now. We're on the venture capital, but this stage was actually meant to be a trade. I was building a trading platform.
Okay.
To trade in shares and different things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's actually turns out it's become a venture capital side. That's the only difference actually in the 16-year plan.
Wow.
As it's going on. So the one thing I should just say on my dad is that I look back, because I want to be fair about this, I look back on that, and what I realise, although I've never spoken to him about it, what I've realised, or this is what I've taken out of it, is that he started off this firm, Donnelly and Wall, with Paddy Donnelly, and he took early retirement. Then he was retired 2 years later from he had that conversation with me at 57. So he retired at 57 from a business that was paying him a really good money.
Sure.
So what I've realised is that he was not enjoying it.
Okay.
This is what I believe. This is literally only a couple of years ago I realised this, because I go over it regularly. And he obviously was not enjoying his job because he retired 2 years later, and he didn't want me to come into a place that he wasn't enjoying.
Well, okay.
That's what I believe now actually happened.
Mm-hmm.
And he just doesn't have the vocabulary or the emotional piece to be able to explain that to me, because he's old school. So that's what I actually believe happened now. And actually, I actually got a wee tingle up the back of my neck. He was actually trying to do me a massive favour, but wasn't able to let me know, because I probably wouldn't have understood anyway.
Yeah. Do you think, do you have any other inkling in terms of what his thought process was?
Yeah, no, I'm pretty confident. He said to himself, I'm not enjoying this. Okay. This isn't for me. I'm going to retire, and I don't want to bring my son into it, because I'll be bringing him into somewhere that I think that he won't enjoy.
Wow.
And he was trying to do me a favour, because he's a good guy. I couldn't see it at the time, so I immediately thought somebody's taken away my life.
Yeah.
And it did spur me on.
Yeah.
Ultimately, but that's what I think happened. I might have that conversation. So he's 81 now, and he's still going strong, and I'll maybe have that conversation with him one day.
How do you think your parenting style has changed from?
I've learned a lot. My parenting style is really based upon. So I look back at mine and I feel my dad was so old school. So it's not the touchy feely or anything like that. Whereas I'm, you fill the void, as it were. I want to have my relationship. Like, I work really hard, so I have less time than some other parents might have.
Sure.
But that time, the energy that I put into that time, and the love and the connectedness is really important to me, because I want to have the social capital to be able to say, if they are going off the rails, like I have done at times in my life, to be able to have a conversation. And they will listen. Now, like, when they get the teenagers, maybe this is just a pipe dream, but my dream is that I will have enough social capital in them that I can help them.
Sure.
Whereas my dad probably didn't have that social capital with me, because that bond hadn't been built.
Okay.
To be able to help me when I maybe needed it.
Interesting. If you, it's subjective, but if the second choice had to come in and straight into business, do you have any perception of?
God knows. No, do you know what? I actually also think I was a pretty immature person.
Sure. Sorry, Andrew's just arrived.
I actually think, I look back and I say I was pretty immature.
Okay.
Right up until the late 30s. Do you know what? Do you know the only thing that probably brought me maturity was losing everything? I actually think I was immature. I just think I was really immature in a lot of ways. And the maturity has actually come to me through gratitude. I don't think I had gratitude. I've thought about this quite a bit. Don't think I had the gratitude about the people. I don't know why, but I do have it now.
Sure.
So as for if I'd gone straight into business, as I said, I'd been very successful, and then I'd have lost it all.
Well,
I probably followed a similar sort of cycle to what I did.
Yeah.
Did do. So the fact that I lost all, some people will just put that down to a market crash.
Sure.
Right? But I accepted my responsibility pretty quickly and said I was responsible for losing everything. It wasn't the market. So actually, because I took that approach, I gave the banks, here, have everything, tied it up on a nice package for them, there you go. And I was actually backed in the market by a bank within 2 years of losing everything.
Wow, okay.
Now, I reckon I was the first person to get finance after the crash.
Wow.
Because I said, here you go, this is my fault, not your fault. You didn't make me sign anything. You may have been pumping the market that made me take a different course.
Sure.
But nobody forced me to sign anything. Here it all is, take it all back, nicely packaged. And because I took that responsibility, that was me maturing and growing up, I was actually back and banked in the marketplace within 2 years. Probably the first after the crash here.
I can't help but draw a comparison from, you're saying in your childhood, you know, the excesses of Christmas and everything else, and almost downplaying it and pushing it almost away, and almost then this sort of moment of levelling the field.
Oh well, that's a good point, because if you take, for instance, our own home, right? So our first child had just been born. Okay, so we were entitled to stay in that house, a nice big house with a big garden, with 5-bedroom house in the Malone Road, right? We were entitled to stay there until she was 18, at which stage the market would have recovered anyway, and then you do a deal with the bank. Okay, sure. And we had a tracker mortgage, 0.5% over base.
Wow.
Right, and the base rate had dropped to 0.5%. So our tracker was our mortgage was 1%, and wasn't going to go anywhere anytime soon. So our mortgage was less than you could rent a house for. Right, we had the best deal in the world, and nobody was able to take it off us. I told the bank, take it back. Do you know what? I don't want it. Just take it. I don't want to feel beholden to anybody. Have that. And looking back on that was a crazy thing to do. Absolute lunacy. And we lived for 5 years then with my sister-in-law in her back bedroom. But it was the right thing for me for whatever reason. I just wanted to clear those decks. And I used it as part of the narrative to get that back in 2 years later. I says, look, I had a flipping bank. They were getting brutalised by that mortgage product because they were borrowing a lot higher than 0.5% over base. I said, there you go, to the bank, take that back.
So what was the thought process there? I mean, the seeds of a plan were obviously kicking in.
Yeah, well, I had a 7-year plan and that was it. I just didn't. Do you know what? I felt, you know, you talk about a wee bit of self-flagellation. I felt I had to feel the pain. And if there were a lot of other people I know, right, who had been through similar stuff, and they still sat in a big house and all the rest of it and pretended that nothing was going on and drank. Luckily I had given up alcohol by 37. That was a lucky one actually. So they ignored a lot of what was going on around them. And some of them still in denial to this day. Some still haven't met the reaper, as it were, on that. Whereas I said, you know what, I backed myself. I said my rise and my success wasn't luck. It wasn't to do with an inflated market, because I was in the market long before it got inflated. My ability to see an opportunity or to make money, I've been doing it all my life. I'll do that again.
Sure.
But I don't want anybody to say I've got something I shouldn't have and take that back.
What would that mean? Someone saying you get something?
I don't know. I don't know. I have this. There's another thing. It's a wee weird thing. Is that, for instance, my wife would sometimes talk about doing a lottery, and I say you can't do the lottery. What have we won? And it's a bit weird because she said, great, more holidays. And I'm saying, no, but that would ruin the whole thing, because then somebody will be able to say, I don't know why this works. Some people will say, oh, you got it easy. I think maybe whenever we used to arrive up to school in my dad's car, my dad had the car we arrived up to school, and there were only 2 of them in the whole of Northern Ireland, and we used to rock up in this car, and it was one way it was lovely, but another way it was, Jesus Christ, this is too much. And so I like to be able to say, I want to be able to say everything that I have created with the support of my wife and family has been created by us, rather than has come from somebody else or some other bank or whatever it might be. Don't know why that's important, but.
Do you believe in fate?
Bizarrely, when you ask that question, first thing that pops into my head is I needed to marry a certain type of woman who is confident in her own self and is prepared to be married to a fucking lunatic, right? I probably was going to have to be a country woman. It all sounds as if I'm putting people in Belfast in boxes or what. So funny, when I was 27, the first week I started trying to give up drink at 27 to bring a more more focused, sensible. And the first weekend I tried to give up drink, I gave it up for a weekend, first time ever at 27. I met my wife in a bar, and I was sober. Now, if I had met her any other weekend in the previous 10 years, she had laughed at me. But because that was the weekend, and when I met her, it wasn't a love at first sight thing, but it was more, I think she could handle me, if you know what I mean. And I ended up marrying her. So I was from 27, we're now 23 years on, married a few years later. So that was a fate one, because remember, if you listen to, so 50 houses, body bars, blah, 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 all of this stuff, not that any of that mattered to her. See, that's another important thing. She didn't give a damn about that. So we had our first child. So we went to that, to absolutely nothing. Sister-in-law's back bedroom for 5 years. Not one word of criticism. When I walked in and said, I'm not going back to being a barrister, this is the most ordinary thing, any woman with any sense would have said, you know what, I've had enough of you. Sure. I'm away. So that was definitely a fate one, because without that support, then I wouldn't have been able to create the businesses and the opportunities and the inspiration for all the other people. But for fate, you know what, I'm a big believer in reality. I had to give up drink that weekend.
Why did you have to?
Because I had to get my life on track. Now, it took me 10 years to give it up totally. And interestingly, I gave it up just before the wheels came off everything. And I believe if I hadn't have managed to keep, remember I said about me being a survivor? If I hadn't have given that drink up that time, I wouldn't have got through the crash stuff. It would have been too painful. So there's a wee survivor bit in me, but yes, in fate, to get back to your question, yes, in fate, but you got to do the stuff. You got to do the things yourself. Nothing's going to come to you. You got to do the work. You got to put the effort in. You got to be a good parent. You got to be a great employer. You got to be a good leader. You got to see the opportunity. You got to take responsibility for whenever you fuck up, like I did whenever I lost everything. All of those things together, good things will happen. You got to be grateful. And that's the biggest one I learned from losing all of the material stuff, was that people still supported me and still loved me. I found out about unconditional love during that period of time. Whenever your wife doesn't say boo to you and you've flipped and turned their life upside down, you realise, right, I'm loved unconditionally, and that freed me to actually love back unconditionally. Sure. Which I don't think I had up until then.
You come across as quite kinesthetic, fair.
Yeah.
You know, not sort of needing to feel the success is yours.
Oh, look, you have to. And that's maybe comes from all that dad stuff I talked about earlier on. So I want to be mine. But look, if I make a mess, I'd be the first person to put my hand up and say, I've made a mess. How you feel, the way that you feel. People take shortcuts when they're starting to fail. The way that you feel is important to how you'll come back.
Sure. I'm curious, you have a 10-year cycle thing going on. There's a lot of 10s.
Yeah.
A factor of 10s. And
I do. Well, that's a bizarre one, because in the current, thing, which is the venture capital with Andrew Cuthbert, the change. Be the change. So I have committed 10 years of my life to that. It's just it's funny you say that. So we've had discussions and we plan it out. And Andrew's a far better planner than me, but I do have a structure of a plan, and he really likes to plan or so. But I said, right, 10 years of my life. You've got 10 years. And he always goes, a wee bit more. And I said, no, 10. There's 10. I said, look, we'll review it at 10 and see if we're having the success that we want to have. Sure. But maybe we'll iterate it and do something else, go into philanthropic stuff if we're really, really successful. Sure. Who knows? But there's 10 years to create that 10 billion of value from 10 million acorn. Wow. So, 10, yeah, there is a wee cycle. There's definitely a cycle. I know there's cycles of normally about 7 years before I get bored and then move on to something.
There does it come across the cycle of almost the 7 years, and then there's a 3 year almost.
There's a wee 3 year finding out what's the next thing.
Sort of verges between self-destruction and then self-recovery. It's like an arsonist
firefighter. Yeah, no, there definitely is. And I thought the next 10 years was actually, because it was going to be 10 years, was going to be the personal development and speed mentor stuff that I do at my own podcast. And hopefully I've made a good contribution to the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Northern Ireland. I was 100% convinced that that was what the next 10 years was going to be, until I met Andrew. And then we went off, and actually that's parked. So there was going to be a 10 year of something. I was 100% sure it was going to be that. And then meeting Andrew Cuthbert. I know we haven't talked about him earlier in the episode, but meeting a particular guy, and I was just fascinated by some of the sort of ideas he was coming up with. Sure. And we had very similar values, even though our wrapper, as it were, is very, very different. Most people who sort of don't know us well enough might think those two would never go together, but actually we're a perfect complement. And then I said, you know what, with the speed mentor and the mentorship stuff, yeah, that'd be good, and I could add a lot of value, but actually 10 years with Andrew might change the world. Sure. So there is a 10-year cycle that has started last summer.
In terms of fire in the belly, I mean, is it something do you think you were born with it?
Yeah, this is a weird one. I don't know whether other people get this. I think I've mentioned it recently in something, and it's going to sound really. I think other people do have it. I know Andrew has it. You might have it yourself, Pete. But I always felt that there was something great to be achieved inside me. I don't know whether other people think this. I have only started sharing this recently. I always felt that I was destined to do something spectacular, and it hasn't been done yet, and I don't want to get to the wooden box and not have done it. I don't know whether other people have that. I've always felt it right from a childhood.
Where do your language change? Your body language changes quite significantly. Almost afraid to say that.
I haven't really said it before. Because it makes you sound like you're an arsehole.
I say it very openly, so I'm not.
Do you? Right. Well, that's all right. I didn't know whether other people said it, but I always felt that there was something significant. I didn't know what it was. I always was a bit different from the other kids. I wasn't really a team, all the kids were playing team football. I always kept myself separate. I always felt there was something inside that made me a bit different. But maybe everybody feels that. I don't know. But so I've always felt that, and hopefully one day I'll prove it correct.
But on the mentoring side, how did you perceive that in others? I mean,
yeah. Well, what I perceived in others was the stuff that I knew and that I had achieved and that I believed in, and the self-improvement and the journey I'd been on. That knowledge was really a strong foundation to help other people. Okay. So what I can say for definite is that every single one of us has the potential to be more. Every single one. I've been on a journey for 22 years, and I still think there's loads more potential in me. And every single person that I have mentored has had more potential in them. And I'm a bit further down the track from most of them that I mentor. So it's easy for me to see what it is that they need to do. and where they need to improve and what they can do, both on the business side, because I've been in business and experience across a whole lot of different sectors, from law, property, trading business like Spars, Subways, managing people, and driving yourself, keeping yourself accountable, goal setting, sacrifice setting, and gratitude now, which I've built in the last couple of years. So that's, I just plug that into people, and it's really easy. The outcomes that they can achieve from where they are are pretty incredible.
What gets somebody to jump up and take over the world and make a decision or whatever, and the other person goes and switches on the TV?
So
what's the difference?
Do you know what? About 80% of the world are consumers. We boiled it down to a podcast on this, and it was the more I've thought about it, and I've used it actually with my children quite a bit at the minute. So 80% of the world are consumers, and 20% are the producers. Remember that 80-20 I was talking about civil service, and it's a Pareto principle applies in nearly everything. So why are 20% producers and 80% consumers? I don't know, but it's just a fact that's the split. And the more you can produce for the 80%, the greater your opportunity will be. And if you do it in a way that you're always adding more value, there will be plenty of people who want to consume it and to go on your journey with you.
Makes sense.
So why they do that? Like, some will do it because they had nothing and they want something. Some will do it because they've already been born into success, so they've seen how it's done. Some will have had a golden handshake from their father or mother or whatever. Some will just find it out of, necessity. Maybe they lost a job and they had to become an entrepreneur. It's something actually I've talked quite a bit to Andrew about. He's a big believer that a lot of it is necessity. So you lose something. A few times I've lost stuff, and actually it's made me come back stronger every single time.
Sure. Do you feel like you're in alignment with yourself now?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Big time.
Is that a new thing, or is that?
Yeah, it's getting stronger and stronger.
Okay.
I did a post recently as I look in the mirror. I actually love the guy who looks back with all his flaws, with his good bits. I understand that person more than I ever did. And
what was the turning point?
So part of the turning point was losing everything in terms of financial sense. That made me reassess about who I was, about unconditional love, stuff we've talked about. I started getting gratitude in my life. I talked before, a wee squirrel comes into this garden in the morning, just wee tiny things like that. Just I'm lucky to have a garden, a squirrel come in that comes at the same time every day. I'm lucky to have a wife who loved me and stuck by me when I lost everything. I'm lucky to have 3 healthy children who enjoy their lives. And then about 4 or 5 years ago, I really started working on my own personal development.
Okay.
And that has taken me. So my wife is pretty well developed person, right? She needs to be.
Women generally are.
Yeah, and she needs to be. To put up with me through personal development. Chimp paradox was a big one for me. Chimp paradox, and I actually saw a lot of my flaws. As soon as I read that, I went, "Fuck, that's me." There's one at the start where I thought where. A man is waiting for somebody to go, I think it's to go to the cinema, or certainly my memory of my own one was whenever I put it, and the woman hasn't arrived on time, and he's going like that, and it's how they're getting frustrated and all the rest of it, and then phoning, why aren't you there? And then she arrives 20 minutes late, and she's off, somebody got knocked down by a car, and they had to use my phone to phone an ambulance. And I had an instance similar to that with my wife. I went, oh my God, that's me. I need to start working on myself. And I had started working on myself. And I have really worked really hard on myself. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits.
7 Habits, yeah.
Read that, blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind around parenting as much as anything. Really absolutely blew my mind. And I've worked and got better and better at that stuff. And until I actually believe, it's going to sound bad, but I actually think I'm further developed than my wife now. I can actually see that.
Oh, geez,
I know, but I have to tell the whole truth. Even, you've heard me say, I tell it no matter what. I actually think I'm further developed than her now. And I actually think that she might think it as well. She actually started reading a wee bit of Stephen Covey. That's what told me that she was, because some of the stuff with the kids, meditation.
Yeah.
I've seen some stuff. I haven't meditated as well in 2019 as I did in 2018. But in 2018, some of the stuff that started coming to me, the clarity from meditating. So I got a big breakthrough, a wee thing with my son, and I couldn't find a way through it. The answer came in the middle of a meditation. Just bang. That I was putting my issue onto him. It was a really weird one, and then it just cleared it. It just cleared the system like an artery. The blood just. And just after that, then I started my relationship with my son, got off on a slightly different basis, and about 2 weeks later, he held my hand on the way into school, and he doesn't even do that with his mummy. She says, and I told her this was going to happen. I said, wait till you see this over the next couple of weeks. I've just seen something. And that's when she said, what's that book you were reading? So that's really, really powerful stuff.
That's very special.
Yeah. But that's taking responsibility for your own shortcomings and saying, do you know what, I want to get better. And look, I'm very blessed. I've lots of people work for me. They're working away at the minute whilst we sit and have this nice chat, etc. And then I go off and flip and get into all sorts of stuff with Andrew Cuthbert, and they're out in the wall group working in the spars and the subways and all the rest of it. I could say, do you know what, I've achieved it. But I say, do you know what, no, I have a long, long way to go, both personally and in my business, and I want to keep getting better and better.
You mentioned there a short while ago about being lucky to have your wife and your kids and so on. Why does luck play in it for you?
Yeah, that's I say that when comparison is the thief of sort of joy, but I say that because I know I believe. All right, so I didn't drink that weekend. I met her. I met her just at the right time. I've done the hard work. I gave up drink at 37. I wouldn't have got through the crash personally. I don't believe without that. So I do the work just in time to help myself. I use the word blessed maybe sometimes rather than luck. It's probably not luck. I probably do actually maybe I push away the success a wee bit sometimes. Maybe that's why I use luck. Maybe I don't like people thinking that I think that I have achieved it on my own, or I just feel blessed. I don't know. I feel blessed.
Who would you say are the significant people in your life?
So my wife and my kids. Pretty close with my mum, my brother and my sister, or my two brothers and sisters. But I would say the ones that have really been the bedrock are my wife and my kids. Over the last decade, they've been the biggest influence on me, and hopefully me on them.
What's your pattern? What drives you day to day? I mean, when's enough going to be enough? Is there enough? Is that the way you measure?
Being at the head of the Industrial Revolution, or Linonopolis as we used to be called, I want to help Northern Ireland get back to that sort of level. And I want to have a massive funeral, right? I know I'll not be at it. I think I'm going to do a podcast for my funeral. I've just came to me when I was at a funeral recently. I'm going to do a eulogy bit that somebody else does. I'm going to do my own. It's cocky, but I want to have made an impact to so many people, and to have helped change Northern Ireland for the better, and to have driven so much value into job creation, into intellectual property. Andrew's the main one on that, but they've made such a difference that there are loads of people saying, I want to make a difference.
Is that ego?
It might be, yeah. If you really think about it, there's ego in there.
Ego can be good and bad. I mean, it's not a...
but if it's done for the right reasons, there's definitely, and there was something, I was analysing something actually the other day, and I said, Yeah, it was a recent business decision that I think I maybe got wrong.
Okay.
And I thought about it and thought about it and thought about it, and I said, you know what, that was ego. That made me get that wrong. So, there's ego in there, yes. You have to be honest with yourself and say if you want to create something, even if it's not for yourself. So if you take Mother Teresa, I bet you there was a big ego. But the means to actually satisfy that, maybe it's controversial, I don't know, but the means to satisfy that was actually to create so much good for a lot of other people that made her feel good. Or the greatest leaders, there must be ego, I think, that drives that. But there's different ways it can be good or bad. If it's to create abundance for as many people as possible, the outcome is good, even if there's a wee bit of ego in driving it on. But I'm
Talk to me.
No, it's so whilst I accept that there's ego in there, I believe, or I hope anyway, you'll have to ask people that I help on their journey, is that, you know, for instance, I genuinely say I have people working for me, like Kieran Meehan, for instance, he is a better manager than I am. Like I try and employ, I have got better accountants, I try and employ and bring the best people I possibly can, and I give them their credit for doing the brilliant work that they do. I don't want to take the glory. If people say, look, there's a lot of stuff created, Gavan Wall helped create it, that's great, but everybody has to do their bit.
Sure.
You know, and it's their achievement, not mine. Well, it probably is a bit of ego in there. All right, you've got me.
Would you say you're you understood?
I'm understood.
Are you? It's a question.
I don't know.
What's your perception?
I don't know. It's you're getting into some interesting questions here because my public persona.
Your body language is.
I know. Honestly, Andrew's just come into the building over there on the left because, right. Okay, if you take my public persona and the speed mentor stuff, etc., right, and larger than life, I am in a way, but that stuff, I build that stuff up, right?
Sure.
So that I can be a lightning rod for, if you listen to my podcast, I've got Walrus Island and I've got Dickhead Island, okay? So I build that up and I become then the lightning rod for the people who don't want other people to have success, right? And I built, you know, take me on, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to clear the decks for other people to start believing in themselves. And I think if you look at the ecosystem, some of the stuff that's going on in Northern Ireland at the minute, there's definitely been room has been created by me saying, yeah, I'm the fucking ego, come and get me. And people attack me, and that has let other people then say, oh, Gavin's still standing after all that. Do you know what? Just because everybody doesn't like you, or because your particular message doesn't fit the wee narrow sort of silos that society says, well, Gavin's still standing at the end of all of that. You know, if you look at this is ego, there's part ego, part so if you look at the avatars or people's profiles pics or anything that's sort of Northern Ireland, you know, I've been doing that for quite a while now, and other people are now able to express themselves in theirs. Sort of, just as an example, I did a hedge, you know, they feel confident enough. You go back a few years and you say, you know, we all have to be, you know, there's a picture from our wedding or something like that. There's all sorts of people are saying, do you know what? And most of them haven't been mentored by me. I haven't received anything from them. I'm absolutely delighted to support them. Sure. And if there's flipping 100 Gavan Walls I have to compete with, remember I said at school I was maybe afraid of competing on that, and I wanted to be the best person at exams who did no work rather than being the best. I'll take it on. Now I'm a wee bit more confident in myself. I'll actually try and compete, but support at the same time.
Fair play.
So I think.
Are you at your potential, do you think?
There's loads more potential. I actually had imposter syndrome for the first time ever at the tail end of 2019. There's new stuff that we're doing on venture capital and startup is so outside my comfort zone. I also switched to a vegan diet and didn't supplement with B12, which was really playing with my energy levels. But I had a lot of imposter syndrome. The stuff I'm learning at the minute, it's actually a pity that I'm not mentoring. Now, I'm going to be mentoring within the startups that we support within the change.
Sure.
But I have learned the amount of stuff I've learned sort of in the last year, from startups and from Andrew Cuthbert and from other people that I'm meeting. In fact, if we go, a guy called John Napton, down in Catalyst, he's one of the main guys down there. We have one of our startups is on us, and like you're going into those sessions and you're just soaking it up like a sponge because you're being exposed to new ideas about how you look at a business cycle or how you look at a business plan.
Sure.
So in terms of potential, look, we're trying to raise 10 million quid for the change. We want to create 10 billion in 10 years. I'm about that far on my journey in comparison to what we're trying to achieve. So no, loads more to come. Loads. Absolutely loads. If I thought I was at my potential now, there's no possibility I will get to that journey successfully. No possibility.
Do you see yourself retiring?
No. Oh, you die in the middle of a deal. Your best deal ever. You're doing your best deal ever. My dad retired at 57. Like that blows my mind. I feel I'm only getting going. I was thinking the other day, have we posts coming to think about all the things I've done since I was 45 for the first time. You know, definitely not retiring. No way. No way. You become. So I've done a lot of heavy lifting. So that 7 year sacrifice, all that stuff I've done in the Wall Group, building up our businesses. You know, from one spar store to second to third to fourth to a Subway to second, third, fourth Subway to Yogi Berry, all of that stuff that I did. That was all heavy lifting. I tell you my theory. I got this from Andrew Cuthbert. It was a moment of clarity that I'll never. It was one that you've heard. There were a few different points of clarity, and I remembered in a wee coffee shop in Hollywood, and Andrew says to me, "It's all about creating value with the power of the mind." My head just went. That's true. I've done a lot of heavy lifting.
Sure.
I'm not saying, but the lifting that you do with your mind creates more value than the physical stuff that you do out there in the world. And even though I was adding a lot of value to people's journeys,
sure,
actually sitting and taking the time to analyse a business, doing design sprints that Andrew would do, strategic design sprints, etc. That can actually take a business on 6 months. If you take a whole day, bring a couple of experts in, sit down, say, right, where are we? A wee bit like I do with the mentoring,
sure,
but in a more structured way. So with that sort of knowledge on board, well, hopefully we can achieve what we've set out to achieve.
I never got to experience your mentoring.
Yes.
Unfortunately, through logistics and one thing and another.
Yeah, you came to the Developing an Unstoppable Mindset event, and I'm sure you'll not forget when I came in.
So, it was certainly the first of many, and actually the lady that was sitting next to me was the lady Victoria.
Vicky McMahon, yes.
Vicky McMahon. And even just seeing her, so obviously I'm sort of aware of yourself even from before then, but the Vicky I spoke to that night, by pure coincidence sitting beside her, so even the Vicky today and the posts she's putting out, it's unrecognisable, I think is a fair... Yeah.
So funny, we're a year on from my first Speed Mentor retreat when I took a dozen people looking for growth away for a weekend retreat. So it was actually January of last year was actually the first time I did that, and that was the start of my sort of really starting to scale up the mentorship side of it. We took a dozen people. I'm not telling you, or I'm not joking you, the development of those 12 people in the 12 months have all contacted me this January. It would blow your mind. That's right. The power of that is incredible. Diane Kaplewski, I'm still mentoring Diane. Some of the stuff, she set a guerrilla goal during that, and this is the power of the stuff for anybody who's watching or looking to be inspired. She set a guerrilla goal during that weekend, and I said, that's not big enough. There's no way that can be achieved. I've been working on this for 2 years. Can't be achieved. I said, that's because you're going about it all the wrong way. It needs to be bigger. There can't be any bigger. This is the grill of gold. This is the thing that changed my life. And it was to get hooked up with the number one person in the whole world in her space. She was about, I don't think she'll mind me saying this, I think she was about to fly to, because we've talked about it before, about to fly to Jaipur, actually. Anyway, but I'll cut it short. We delivered it in 6 days. She said at that event, that weekend, it could not be done. She'd been working on it for 2 years. We did it in 6 days after the event. Her biggest goal she could think of was delivered. And she's gone on to amaze. She's absolutely unbelievable. She was an unbelievable person before she met me. Sure. She saw me spoke at an event the previous summer. And then she was the last person to sign up to the Speed Mentor Retreat. She said, flip, that's the guy I saw speaking. That'd be really interesting. She just needed to, it was like a plug hole block with hair and all. She just needed somebody to dip in and lift out the flipping hair. Do you know what I mean?
I don't know if she's going to fight you for that.
I know, but just to lift the hair. But you mean, all of it was there.
Yeah.
There's so many people, all of it was there. It's just somebody needs to give them the courage sometimes. Sure. Or just tweak it to let them go to the next level.
Which is quite a skill.
Yeah, I definitely 100%, and I hope and believe that I won't regret this, because I believe that I do have a pretty special skill at that. Just because I have a lot of empathy and I think a lot about emotion, etc. I say sometimes Andrew has the IQ, I have the EQ, so I have a lot of that. And hopefully that will be evidenced in our journey on the change, because I am leaving something, you know, and Andrew's got other massive things with 2 other people who are in the change with us as well, who are brilliant people, Colin Hutchinson and Laura Bond, but we're plugging our creative abilities and our structural and our drive into this venture capital stuff. Sometimes I do think maybe that was the one that I will regret or not doing, but I had 2 choices. I'm going to change the world with Andrew.
Are you spiritual?
I wish you didn't ask me that.
Okay.
I'm covering up. I am. I say spirit. Yes, I'll say spiritual. Religion and stuff like that. It's a difficult thing to talk about in Northern Ireland, as you know. And but it's different. It's a different thing. So it's
to put it into perspective, you mentioned emotional,
yeah,
and you mentioned energy, and you mentioned abundance, which are sort of
I am, and that side of me has been getting stronger the last couple of years. Yes. Yeah, I would have said, if you ask me, I've never been an atheist. I know there's a difference between spirituality and God, etc., but they are closely linked as well. So I've always been open. Sure. When I was a teenager, I actually used to go to different churches.
Okay.
It's a weird thing that Andrew bizarrely had done as well. So so we've 2 main faiths sort of in Northern Ireland as it were, but I used to go to different churches just on different days of the week and just get a wee bit of spirituality. It's a wee bit of a weird thing, but so I've always had an interest in what's out there and what might be out there, or what's inside us. And so yes, and it's getting stronger in the last few years.
When are you at your best? What's your peak performance or state that you get to?
At the minute, it's interesting. At the minute, it's a wee bit crimped, or it certainly was when I was going through the piece with no B12, and then just because there's so much the intensity that we're under at the minute. I do love trying to show other people what they can achieve, but the intensity of what we're doing at the minute, because it's all so new to me, is probably, I'm not at my best at the minute. It's coming back a wee bit better. Okay. At the minute, I'm not at my best, I don't think, because the load that we have to find all these startups, to get the funds in place, to back them, to get the FCA compliance, to try and drill a friggin' hole through the roadblock that Northern Ireland sometimes is around new ways to do things.
Sure.
Now, in Northern Ireland, we don't do it this way. Well, that's what our problem is. So all of that, the intensity to deliver all of that is pretty heavy burden at the minute.
Sure.
So I'm not just at my best at the minute, but Andrew's dragging me through it. And whenever we get over some of these hurdles and we're up and running, the best of me will be back. But the ability to never give up and to dig in,
sure.
even when I was getting my imposter syndrome at the tail end of last year, that's a strong bit of me. But I like to be able to show people, our evidence, leadership, and I don't know whether I have enough of that in me at the minute because of the pressures.
But even that inversion of energy is quite a strength, I would put across and say. To take something that is negative, and you inferred on it slightly earlier, but to take a negative energy and to actually to use it to your...
Yeah. I have a podcast episode called Everything is Energy. And it's how you then transmute sort of that energy. So you can be getting a lot of negative energy, and if you know how to work things, so it's just take it like a customer complaint even, and this energy, boom, I know from running spar stores that no customer will ever go out of that shop unsatisfied, because no matter what energy they come in with, and I preach this for people that if they ever want to get in life, no matter what energy they come in with, if you've the ability to just change that, or even take your own negative energy and actually turn it positive, such that it's just to never give up. So let's take an example. Like, this is the one on a customer. If you're a negative customer, but if you've always just given it, okay, what can I do for you, etc., etc., they'll always go away happy. But I had thought of a wee example there for you. That's just gone right out of my head. Right, so if you're under pressure, okay, and you're feeling negative, right, I have that down to such a T that I know that is just a test, right, and that to get through that day when you mightn't be at your best, when you're feeling under pressure, if you just get to the next day, you have a sleep on it, you put a little bit in place, you never give up, the next day it feels like you've achieved something, and you've turned that negative energy from the day before into positive energy the next day. Don't know if I've explained that very well, but it's all energy, and it's how you then change it from negative to positive.
Wow. So you're on a trajectory that you're...
So I've been going through tough stuff, and I've been going through tough stuff, but that's part of the process. You cannot go into something completely new and expect to know all about it. People you asked me earlier on actually about what's my perception of other people's perception of me. I don't know if I really answered that. So people say, I know there are people going, fucking Gavan Wall, he's dickhead. He thinks he's just walking into venture capital or the startup world, and he thinks he's Billy Big Balls, and he just walks in, and that's the way that he does stuff. And he's just pivot out of something else, and all he is, he's just a shopkeeper. Right, I know, because I see their messages and what they say about me, etc. But what they don't really know is that may be their perception of me, but that's not what I'm like. So I'm listening to less personal development stuff at the minute, because I'm listening to stuff about venture capital, about startups, podcasts, books, listening to the people that I go to. When John Napton talks down at Catalyst, I'm taking notes, right, because I know that I don't know it. I might be a wee bit of a peacock walking in, but trust me, underneath it, I'm taking the notes and trying to learn, because I want to learn it. The people who are maybe throwing the darts at me, or maybe the people who haven't had as much success as they think they should have had, because they're not prepared to do the work that I'm prepared to do.
Sure. What's the most disappointing thing that could happen?
Oh Jesus! Right, lose other people's money. That's easy.
Okay.
That's easy. Now I know in the investment world that happens, but that would be the number one most disappointing thing
Sure.
that could happen on a venture capital firm. That would be tough. My own money, that's fine. If I want to lose it or make a decision, that's fine. No, I'm not planning on it, but
sure.
Don't know if it's a good answer, but
no, it's just there. We've covered a lot of ground.
We've covered a lot of ground.
So to simplify it down, and let's come back again, fire in the belly for you in one or a few words, what do you perceive it to be?
So the fire in the belly at the minute is, I'm just locked. Do you know what? It's going to sound weak, but it's to create 10 billion of value in 10 years from a 10 million acorn. That's it. That's when I'm living outside of the family. That's just it. And it's every day, are you getting a step closer to it? So some days, this is a slightly different journey for me this time because I'm in a partnership with 4 people, but the person I work day in day is Andrew. So on the partnership, there'll be days that maybe he's taking some hits and it's affecting him more, or there'll be days that maybe it's the other way around. And every day I just say, we're a day closer. We're a day closer to our outcome. So that's the goal. And that's not 10 billion for us. That's 10 billion of value to the ecosystem. So they will be founders who might have gone with another VC and mightn't have worked. We're making a difference to their lives. So we have to create 10 companies that are worth 10 billion. Right, so that's lots of other people. So when I say that, people might hear 10 billion. Hey, like he's going. That's not about it. If we create 10 billion of value to the ecosystem, you know, we don't have to worry about money. That's well down our pick. That's what we're trying to do. Create that.
Fair play. Gavin, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure we've gone way over time there. God knows what. You took me to some places there. I did say, you did ask me at the start, can I talk about anything? And you certainly got into a few wee nooks and crannies there that maybe I wasn't expecting. I did quite a bit of self-reflecting there. I hope it didn't bore anybody. But
listen, everyone's journey is personal.
Yeah.
You know, what floats your boat's different to mine and vice versa, which is fine. And that's the thing, there's no right or wrong answers. And I like you, I believe we are all capable of more than we could ever receive. You know, so here's to the future.
Okay,
Yep.
good man. Thank you very much. Okay, folks, see you later.